It's Small Business Week in Colorado Springs, Olympic City, USA. Hi everyone, I'm Mayor John Suthers. This is an exciting time to live, work, and play in our city, and that wouldn't be the case without our incredible small business community. To our small business leaders, I hope you enjoy a full week of valuable presentations and events. Thank you for doing business in Colorado Springs.
This tiny payment thing
is a giant pain.
Hi, ladies.
Alex from US Bank. Can she help?
How about a comprehensive point-of-sale system that can track inventory, manage schedules,
and customize orders?
That's what US Bank Business Essentials is for. What about a new oven? Can US Bank help us there?
We can serve loans in as fast as 12 minutes.
That would be a big help.
Huge. Jumbo.
Ginormous.
Finding ways to make your business boom. That's what US Bank is for. We'll get there together.
Starting small is a good thing here in Colorado Springs. Take us, for example.
We are the small but mighty economic development team at the City of Colorado Springs.
But thanks to our long list of partners, we're able to offer great resources to help our small business community.
The COS Open for Biz website is a step-by-step roadmap for those just getting started.
For anyone struggling throughout the process, we offer issue resolution and support.
Our office can connect you with local, state, and federal resources.
We know that a small group can accomplish big things.
At the City of Colorado Springs, we love all business, but small business is the backbone of our economy and makes us a more vibrant and interesting community.
Visit coloradosprings.gov/smallbiz so we can help you find business success.
Thank you for choosing Colorado Springs, Olympic City, USA.
Welcome everyone as we celebrate Small Business Week in the Pikes Peak region. Our Small Business Week continues to be the largest celebration of small businesses throughout Colorado and one of the largest in the United States. As a small business owner, I know how important small business is to El Paso County. Small businesses, both urban and rural, are the backbone of our local economy. As we commemorate Small Business Week with local events and workshops and the awards celebration, we recognize all our entrepreneurs and small business owners in El Paso and Teller County. My thanks go out to the Pikes Peak Small Business Development Center and the Better Business Bureau for their hard work celebrating and empowering small businesses. I encourage everyone to support small businesses by choosing to eat and shop at their favorite local and independently owned venue, not just during Small Business Week, but all year long. Thank you so much for supporting our small businesses.
I've lived in Colorado Springs all my life. I was adopted by folks here in 1951 when I was 3 weeks old. For most of my early years, the City Auditorium was the largest indoor space in Colorado Springs. And so it housed most of the major indoor entertainment events. I came to watch the Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus in this auditorium. I remember vividly as a young child watching the elephants run around on the floor. I came to numerous Harlem Globetrotter games. So I've got tremendous memories of how important this building was to Colorado Springs as a community when I was growing up. on the forefront of the City Auditorium's 100th anniversary. In the same way the citizens of 1923 came together, we invite our entire community to come alongside the vision for repurposing this building. A vision to reignite this building to its original mission, a place for the use of the citizens and the glory of the city, in a fresh, vital, and relevant way. The City Auditorium, with the leadership of the Community Cultural Collective, will be that place in the center of our city, in the heart of our downtown. A place of coming together, bringing ideas, partnerships, opportunities, collaborations, and outreach. A place that will tell our story, tell the story of all that Colorado Springs has to offer, to each other, to the state, to the nation, and to the world.
The Colorado Springs Chamber and Economic Development Corporation is the largest business organization in the Pikes Peak region. We are built and infused by our small, mid-size, and large member businesses. Chamber and EDC members gain access to new partnerships, influence, and increased brand awareness among customers and peers. No other entity in our region can influence and leverage the power of the business community like we do. Let's achieve your goals.
I decided that it was the best option for me to say, hey, I'm struggling, I need help.
In speaking with Jonte, I knew the pain he had, but I also saw in him a determination. It was his determination that got him where he is.
Dr. Moss, he says that he sees himself in me, and him giving up on me is like him giving up on himself.
When he talked about some of the experiences he had, it wasn't that I was doing it from a textbook, it was from personal experience. I knew that same pain, I knew that same frustration, that same hurt.
My experience with Kaiser Permanente is different from other healthcare providers. It's simply behind the care.
In Kaiser Permanente, we're different in the fact that we treat the whole person.
Dr. Moss helped me cope with a lot of things. I am present, I am more active. My overall life experience has dramatically changed for the better.
So we're missing a couple familiar faces. Jonathan Liebert is not feeling so well today, and Eiktha got a presidential appointment, promotion to District 8 district lead for the SBA. So we're proud of her. She's currently in Houston. She'll be back tomorrow for the State of Small Business. I also want to thank Jim Harris is up here. US Bank is back as presenting sponsor of Small Business Week for, I think it's been at least a dozen years, even before BBB and SBDC came together. So US Bank, thank you for caring for small business. We have a special day today. I will be moderating with Dr. Jonathan Lee, and we're going to talk about modern leadership. So cultural revolution from social justice movements, Great Resignation, climate changes, and other relevant topics are revealing a new generation of modern leaders who don't see leadership as something that just establishes and protects power. They want power to be shared as a means of creating change for all. This is a democracy of leadership and is rapidly gaining momentum. A few leaders and companies are prepared for it. Dr. Lee?
Thank you. Good morning. So, yeah, my name is Jay Lee. I'm an internal medicine physician for Kaiser Permanente. I've been there since 2008, but for the 8 years prior to that, I actually own my own practice. So I used to be a small business owner, so I am very honored to be here today. Thank you for having me. So the last 2 years, I think we can all appreciate that our world was turned upside down by the COVID pandemic. And I think that while we're not out of the woods yet, I think a lot of us are seeing that light at the end of the tunnel is getting nearer. And what I'm hearing and seeing now from a lot of my patients is just the excitement of just all the good things that have come out of COVID. So even though there was a lot of tragedy and loss, so many positive things are coming out. And on a personal level, my wife and I realized how much we have changed, how we spend our time, how we spend our money, and even our vacations. And we have greatly simplified our lives. And so I'm very appreciative of all the positives that can come out of something that could have been so tragic. So healthcare is no different. So in healthcare, we've gone through a lot of changes, mostly on how we deliver healthcare. Some of you may have had a video visit with your physician if in the last 2 years, and that technology's been around for about 30 years, but if that's new to you, that's new to us as well. So a bunch of changes in healthcare delivery, but also in how we lead. So the biggest changes, which I'm really excited about, is we've changed how we manage and structure and just lead our teams. Today we will be discussing our modern leadership, and in healthcare, for us it has meant less top-down. It is letting the people who have their feet on the ground doing the work actually lead that work and honoring their input. Modern leadership involves sharing information, creating a higher sense of level of trust, and creating a better sense of inclusion and belonging. The great leaders that are on our panel today care, and they invest more in their team members' well-being, career goals, and accomplishments. So becoming a modern leader requires reshaping and redefining what leadership means, and we are excited to have this conversation today. So thank you to the panel, and thank you all for being here today.
Before we introduce our distinguished panel, I want to go through what we're going to be covering today. There are three main areas related to modern leadership. There's connect with purpose, connect with accomplishment, and connect to one another. Connect with purpose is what is your why. People deliver better results with more passion when they understand why and how their work advances the company or the team's higher purpose. Connecting with accomplishment. Modern leaders communicate clearly and regularly what success looks like. Modern leaders don't let work become defined by tasks, but rather by outcomes. And the final, connect with one another. Traditionally, leaders disseminate information on a need-to-know basis, creating silos among different team members and sowing seeds of distrust. Modern leaders share information broadly to encourage collaboration and motivate employees to help each other succeed, and they create a sense of teamwork and inclusivity. Please go ahead and hold your questions till the end. We've got about 15 minutes set aside to answer questions from the audience, but keep those in your mind or write them down, and we will discuss them at that time.
So I'm going to let the panelists go and introduce themselves. We'll start here to my left. So tell us who you are, where do you work, and about how many employees you have, and why you are passionate about modern leadership.
Thank you very much. Good morning. I'm Susan Edmondson. I am President and CEO of the Downtown Partnership of Colorado Springs. I think I'm fading in and out here. I'm not sure if you can hear me when the mic's not on. And now the mic is on. Okay. I can just use the other one. All right, we'll try this one instead. Great. I'm with Downtown Partnership. We are a small organization. There are 9 employees total, including myself. But we're a pretty complex organization. If you know, to say what our industry is, it's known as placemaking or urban place management. But the way we're structured, we have 4 different boards of directors. So we're 2 nonprofit organizations, 2 tax districts. So in terms of who I work with, that's about 60 non-duplicated different board members. We're also a membership organization. So whether it's businesses or individuals who choose to become members of Downtown Partnership. And then in terms of who we represent in downtown, that becomes literally tens of thousands of employees, residents, church parishioners, really any entity interacting with downtown. So in terms of the stakeholders and the people we serve, it's really rather broad. In terms of why I'm passionate about leadership and why that matters, I think I've always, even in my different career paths that have led me to here, been very passionate about helping people and organizations achieve their best. And I think that's a lot of what we do at Downtown Partnership. If we're helping businesses be successful, if we're helping our artists, if we're helping others be successful, that's something that kind of really motivates me and gets me going every day. And I would say also sort of pragmatically, if you're not leading well, then everything becomes reactionary, everything becomes crisis, and it can be, frankly, a very sort of frustrating way to live your life day in and day out. And so by no means perfect at it, but something very mindful of that even if it seems cumbersome to sort of think in a forward manner every moment of the day, I do find the results are better because we're not just like constantly pivoting and just in sort of a sense of drama, if you will. So that's part of the reason that it kind of fulfills me to lead our organization and our team in downtown.
Hello, welcome everyone. My name is Jim Harris and I'm the Community Bank President for U.S. Bank here in Colorado Springs. I also lead our commercial lending group in our community markets across the Mountain States. So I've certainly learned how to lead virtually the last couple of years. One of the things that makes U.S. Bank, I think, unique in this community is we're led by a local community advisory board. I think we're the only national bank in town that continually has done that since the bank started. So that's really important, and they encourage us to do things like Small Business Week, Art on the Streets, and making sure we're meeting the needs of the community. So wanted to make sure I mentioned that. We have just over 100 employees here in Colorado Springs. And in terms of what's important to me for leadership, I think everyone on our team is a leader, and really our job is to make sure that everyone on our team is meeting their full potential as leaders. I also serve as chair of the selection committee for the Colorado Springs Leadership Institute. And our mission is to develop leaders in the community to make sure that we're making a meaningful impact on Colorado Springs. So that's important to me. And just one last thing, all the easy questions go to me, all the difficult questions go to Brian.
Well, thanks for that, Jim. I really appreciate it. Good morning. My name is Brian Risley, and I am the president and principal architect for CRP Architects. Our company has been headquartered here in Colorado Springs for about 42 years. I've been with the firm for about 24 of those years. I'm a native of Colorado Springs, so grew up here, went to District 20 schools, and really that's one of the reasons why leadership to me is so important, to be able to give back to the community, be a part of the community. We've got a staff of 12 people, and like Susan, we're small in numbers but mighty, we think, in reach. We oversee 400 plus consulting engineers and work with some of the largest contractors in the state and in the region. And through our work, although what we focus on, of course, is the built environment, what we are able to do is leverage that to have a positive impact on community. So we say all the time that it's not about the brick and mortar of the buildings, it's about the interactions that happen in between those walls, it's about the connections that occur in the community as a result. And the things that I'm most passionate about when it comes to leadership, as I said, is the ability to give back to the community, but more importantly perhaps is the ability to allow our staff and the people that we work with to grow personally and professionally. One of the things that I really focus on is trying to support them in what they are passionate about themselves, and to allow them the space and the opportunity to really thrive and succeed at what they're interested in. I think beyond that, it's just always a blessing to be able to give back to the community and be a part of what's going on here regionally.
Hello. My name is Erica Romero, and I am actually with the Pikes Peak Workforce Center. The Pikes Peak Workforce Center is part of the American Job Center, so they're throughout the whole United States. But I am the business relations manager. So my job is to help businesses attract, retain, and train their employees through different workforce services that are at no cost. At the Workforce Center, we have about 48 people total on staff, but on my team, we have 12 individuals that work directly with businesses. Something that's really important for me in leadership is diversity. Growing up, I also am a Colorado Springs native. I went to Harrison in District 2, and I never saw a lot of Hispanic women in leadership positions. So something that was really important for me was to make sure that we create awareness and visibility, and that women are just as strong, but especially increasing your diversity, it brings a whole different set of opinions and backgrounds and different things like that. So that's something I've been really excited about. And then with my work with business services, it's really help businesses look at workforce differently, looking at the different opportunities for people with disabilities, people with different skills, and really reducing barriers, because at the end of the day, everything we do wants to result in employment. So that's why leadership has been really important for me, and I'm excited to be a part of that.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Chris Garvin. I'm the Deputy Executive Director of El Paso County Human Services. I have 720 employees or FTEs. As everybody else is dealing with, there's a lot of vacancies and resignation kind of thing going on. So right now we're really focusing on doing a job fair with Erica's group and getting some positions filled. But the idea of modern leadership really resonates with me because I think my job is to instill purpose with our employees, because we're a heavily regulated government agency with lots of federal regulations and state regulations, and sometimes we get lost in that. So I really feel like my role, one thing I hate to do in my role is monitor people. I much rather collaborate with my employees and get their ideas and their input and help them see the bigger purpose of what they're doing at our agency. I mean, our purpose is to provide protective services for at-risk children and at-risk adults, and also to administer the public assistance programs through the federal and state level. So, like I said, there's a lot of rules and regulations, and it's really, you can get lost in that sometimes. So, very important to get the employees engaged and excited about that. So that's where I feel like my leadership role is, and it fits very well with modern leadership and purpose.
Okay, thank you, everyone. All right, so let's start with a group question about modern leadership, and no particular order, you guys can answer as you feel comfortable. So what used to work 3 years ago that does not work now?
Is this an easy question or a hard one? I'll take a swing at it. In our business, 3 years ago, it was a very predictable world. There was a lot more, maybe status quo is one term for it. In the construction and design world, we're facing unprecedented challenges right now in terms of supply chain issues, labor force issues, cost escalations are beyond out of control. And so one of the things that we've really focused on is how do we pivot as a result? And what it's caused us to do is be even more proactive and even more forward-looking and even more aggressive in the way that we approach every situation. So, for example, we're telling clients, start on a project a year earlier than you would have prior to the pandemic. And in order to try to have some opportunity to get ahead of the curve, or at least try to catch up with the curve. And so from a leadership standpoint, again, it's being visionary, it's being forward-looking, it's trying to be as sort of aggressive as possible in our advice and the guidance that we give clients and the way that we approach projects. And we can't just rely on the way things were done a few years ago. It has to be constantly evolving. We have to be constantly changing our approach and our thought process. And it just really requires a lot of adaptability and flexibility from the standpoint of leadership to be able to accomplish that.
One. Go ahead.
Okay, all right.
Who's going first?
I'll go next. Well, I think you've all heard that information is power. And not too long ago, it was the managers that had all the information, right? And they disseminated that information. Now it's interesting, over the last 3 years, and really longer than that, but over the last 3 years, that information is now in the employees' hands. I mean, it's just a few clicks away, right? So that old kind of administrative type of manager that doled out the work or gave the instructions or provided the information, that's really changed. Those administrative managers are now changed to coaches. So it's especially in this after the pandemic with the labor shortages. Your main role is recruiting, coaching, and retaining those employees. And the best managers are those that can do that. So You'll hear me when I'm at the bank, I'll say that we want to be the bank where our competitors want to work and their clients want to bank. And so if you'll notice, it's the employees first, and without great employees, we can't take care of those clients. So that's important to us.
So to kind of add on to that, something that we noticed 3 years ago is kind of what drove workers' engagement. If you looked kind of back, people would kind of look at everybody of people care about wages and they care about titles. And that's kind of how people looked at their workforce. They were kind of like, oh, you know, if I give them a good enough wage, if I give them enough titles. I think all of us saw a lot of like really crazy titles that people were given, thinking that was a big motivator for people. And after the pandemic, I think it was already happening, but it kind of sped everything up. Workers are really looking at what makes a quality job. So yes, wage is important, benefits are important, but work-life balance is also important. Having a safe workplace, someplace where you feel that you can go to work and have physical safety is really important too. So kind of looking at quality jobs has really shifted, and I think it's having a lot of employers have to relook their strategies. So again, looking at how are you looking to attract people, but then once you have them, how do you retain those people? And I love that you said about coaching, because people want to make sure they have that engagement and actually feel valued, and that's actually one of the biggest things. People are willing to accept a lower wage if those other needs are actually getting met. So if they have that work-life balance, if they have a clear idea of what are the opportunities available in a company as well. A lot of times there's a lot of secret. I think that was always the big thing, especially in bigger organizations, is, well, there's positions and you know you want to get it, but we're not going to tell you how to get there. People want clear, concise pathways for development and also development opportunities, because some people don't even really necessarily want to have a higher position. They just want to make sure that they're developed.
Yeah, and I think along those lines, before COVID or before the pandemic, employers probably looked at employees more in the context of work and their productivity, that kind of thing. Today, I think we have to look at the whole person and provide psychological safety at work and avenues to bring up their ideas and to feel comfortable in bringing those ideas up, and just empowering them to do that and to build trust, and also be very task-based, like this is what we got to do to get this done as a team, collaboratively. Like I said, I don't like to monitor, I like to collaborate with people, so that's what I see is a little bit more different and more focused, I guess, after the pandemic. And look at the whole person, and like you said, work-life balance is very important. How do you incorporate that with getting the work done and being okay with that as an employer? Because sometimes you have things and deadlines to get done, but there's other ways of doing things today, I think, that maybe weren't present or we weren't as aware of before the pandemic.
A couple final thoughts on that, echoing a lot of what my fellow panelists said. As an employer, if you will, it used to be that the power sort of rested with the employer, and I think in good ways, right, because of the changes in the labor market, right, that has put more power among employees, which I think overall is absolutely the right thing, right? Wages going up and more of this work-life balance. But then as the manager, the leader, that does put, if you will, more pressure. Like I even joke around, going up to folks in the office, like, are you happy? Are you okay? What can I do for you? Can I get you something? You want a cup of coffee? Come on. Yeah, exactly. Whatever, is this comfy, and yet that it really matters, and it was never anything that was abused before, but more than ever it's things we pay attention to. So I think more in the leadership and managerial role, it's this weird mix of one, being more flexible, right? We all have to be more flexible these days, but that has also meant for me, I also have to be more structured, because now that our team, we are, more flexible, and days people will work remotely. But if even this week, I'm trying to get a 30-minute huddle together with 2 other colleagues, and it's like, but you're going to be working from home that day. Oh, and you're going to be whatever. Just even finding that, I have to be the most structured so I can help accommodate everybody else to also be flexible, which is something that I have to be mindful of. What does that mean for me? And I think that the last thing I would say too is, because there's this sort of rapid pace of change and even some of the challenges in this world. Look at this panel. This panel wasn't quite everyone we anticipated it would be because of very last minute changes. So I think, and everyone in their workplace is going through that too, and helping people if you will, mourn the thing they planned that then became something else, or frankly had to be abandoned entirely, and say, I know you put in a lot of good work on this, and I so honor that. But unfortunately, something has happened, and we just got to move on. So helping people, I hate to say grieve, but like mourn the project, the event they did, and celebrating that even when it changes or alters, because so many things are changing that are beyond our control. And we gotta know that sometimes that's hurting somebody who put in a lot of effort on an initiative.
Thank you, panel. Those were great insights. Susan, the first question here is for you. Modern leaders communicate what success looks like for their organization. Can you describe what good communication looks like?
I think we can all agree that really that starts with setting a vision, right? What is the direction that you're heading in, or your North Star? For me, that's especially challenging because, as I mentioned, I have 4 different boards of directors, and it's not like a committee that, one entity orders the other entity what to do. So I got to make sure that everyone's sort of moving in the same direction, which absolutely goes very much to that, what is your why? I've been in this position for 9 years, and I think what has helped to sort of start moving downtown in this direction economically is we weren't necessarily telling our stories and celebrating our accomplishments. And so it was happening, it was around, but some of that just comes from how do you package the information? You see these 3 things cooling on, you see a trend among them, and so then you have a story to tell of 3 different instances that support this larger vision or this larger goal. With us, like a lot of nonprofit organizations, we issue an annual report, right? And those of us in the nonprofit world kind of know that difference between outputs and outcomes. So our annual report, I can tell you every piece of graffiti we covered up, and every sticker that was removed, and every flower that was planted, and every marketing campaign reach, and every click on this or whatever. We count all of that. But then we also measure, what does that mean for our end goal? How are our businesses doing economically? What's our sales tax revenue? How many businesses opened last year? Those are still all numbers, but those numbers can be really compelling. So when I work on putting together our sort of ancillary report, which is much more that economic report, doing that number crunching can give me a figure like over $2 billion in investment in downtown. But it's all about then putting the face with that, right? I think any kind of communication, you have to put that human element on it. But I think some of that comes from my original background as a journalist of numbers are important. You've got to measure what you're doing, but it all still goes back to what does that mean for a human life, that business owner, that person on the street, and putting that kind of human face on things.
Okay, thank you. So Jim, the next question is for you, and I just want to quickly say I loved your reference to a coach as well. I love just this new change that leaders are coaches and not hall monitors. So thank you for that. So Jim, the status quo in banking leadership used to be command and control. What did this methodology do to employees, and how has this style changed?
Well, many years ago, I guess the best managers, at least in my industry, and maybe you can relate in your industry as well, is those managers that could keep their employees accountable, right? And in fact, many years ago, I worked for a manager who required that before you were allowed to take vacation, you had to stand personally in front of his desk, request the vacation, and state whether or not you were on goal for the year. And if not, why did you think you still deserve to go on vacation, right? Well, as you can imagine, how many of those employees do you think stuck around that bank, right? And in fact, there were several that didn't return from vacation after that. So, I think that things have really changed. And now the best leaders are those who can help their employees meet their own business goals. So those employees really kind of run their own business within our bank. And as managers or leaders, we help them to achieve those goals. The most important, the other thing I guess I would mention is I was selected to be a manager 26 years ago. Why was I selected? Was it because of my leadership skills? No, absolutely not. It was because I was the top producer on the team. So they said, okay, we're gonna have the top producer on the team, now be the manager. Well, So what did I do? I said, okay, well, come with me and do what I do, right? And over the years, I've certainly learned that's not the way to be a leader. Really, the best way to be a leader is to understand how other people on your team are achieving success and help them achieve that success the way they achieve success, and help them to reach out to other team members on the team to leverage the strengths that they might have. Because you heard me say earlier on that I think everyone on the team is a leader, and we certainly don't have all the answers. So,
Thank you.
Chris, the next question is for you. Connecting employers to a higher purpose is extremely important in today's organizations and businesses. Please talk more about why this is important and how you can implement this into your organization.
Thanks for that question, Paul. That's a big question for sure. Purpose in work is an expectation today, especially with what we've all been going through. And anytime you can tie contributions of your employees to the bigger purpose of what your agency does, your business does, I think that's very important. One thing we've done at DHS is to talk about during performance evaluations, is talk about contributions versus achievements. And that's gone a long way to help people see that what they're contributing to is this bigger picture of serving families, putting food on the table for families, medical care, helping people become self-sufficient, working towards the workforce, area, and those kind of things. So that's very important. And we did a large county survey of employees, and we found out that DHS as a department is doing pretty well with that, as long as in items of purpose and respect and performance. So I think we've done a pretty good job in helping our employees understand what their bigger purpose is. Also, purpose cannot survive if you don't have a culture of respect. And so what we've done is do a lot of equity, diversity, and inclusion training. We hired an outside consultant, and at every level of the department, from my executive team down to the unit level, we've provided a series of discussions and trainings around that, hoping that people will feel more comfortable to bring up ideas and feel like there is psychological safety at work to do that, and feel like they're empowered to contribute even more. I think that's the main things I wanted to talk about. Also, I think it's important to measure engagement of your employees ongoing and adjust as needed and have discussions about it. One thing we do a lot is although I'm a large agency, we're kind of like a small business because we have small pockets of units and divisions and that do different things. And each division has done a newsletter of accomplishments or kudos kind of thing that comes out monthly. And what we've begun to do as an executive team is to highlight those in our Monday communications that we do. And then we started doing We Hear You Wednesdays communications. So we highlight the value of our employees and how they contribute to the greater picture of our agency and all the things we have to do for thousands and thousands of people in the county. It's a big job, and it's important to share those contributions and strengths. We just had 2 state reviews called ARD reviews, one for adult protection and one for our foster care program. And we were the only large county that had no errors and no corrective actions to do. And what we did when we announced that is we made a big deal about those units and their contributions towards that and how that impacted the agency and the community and how it serves people very, very well. So purpose is very, very important.
Thank you. Brian, the next question is for you. Politicization of everything is a problem. A modern leader has to manage this and make sure people feel heard and listened to. How do you do this?
Yeah, that's a great question, and obviously front and center in kind of the situation that we're all addressing right now. For us, architecture and design is a very collaborative process, and something that where we need to involve the input from a lot of different people. But what we do is we're very intentional about that process, to seek input, to allow a lot of input from everybody on the team, and more importantly, not just to listen and sort of a token gesture of gathering input, but to actually implement a lot of the great ideas that come out of that process. And I think when you acknowledge a great idea and implement it from whether it's an employee or a consultant or someone else that's part of the process, I think that acknowledges and really begins to reward that input and tends to sort of level the playing field, if you will, to prevent people having polarization around whatever we're looking at or doing. I think it's important to acknowledge that everyone's opinion is equally important and that everyone's input is equally important. But I think it's also important to coach people in the process of understanding and be mindful that your opinion, your perspective on something may not be well received by others that you work with. And so how do you as an individual how can you be sensitive to that? How can you understand that the things you say and the approaches you take may not mesh with those that you work with? And so I think a lot of it is, from a leadership perspective, is sharing the implications of the lack of sensitivity or being out of tune with the things that you're saying and what you're doing and how that can impact those that you work with. We really just try to kind of flatten the whole process, flatten the hierarchy, flatten the kind of the overall approach to what we do, and as a result, it tends to remove that kind of political charge that a lot of other workplaces I think are struggling with.
Erica, company culture is key to getting buy-in from employees. Why is it important, and how do you accomplish this?
So kind of like I was saying, the workforce has changed. What people are looking for has changed. No longer is it okay to have a heartbeat job. I think we talk about most people don't love to work, right? Like, I mean, if we didn't have to work, I could ask all of you, it's like, how many people just love going to work every single day? And a lot of us are doing it because we need money, right? We're working because we need a paycheck, we have families to take care of, maybe it helps support another passion. But I think about when you go to a job that you absolutely hate or you don't feel valued with, and that kind of creates just this horrible engagement piece. So I think having a company culture is, what is your company's why? Yes, we know it's there to make money. We're there to make money. But really, like, what is the vision and what is the impact that that company is making? And how do you engage with your staff? Because an engaged staff actually helps productivity. I know there was a lot of concern when a lot of places went to virtual work, and they're like, oh, these people aren't going to be working at all. They're going to be just messing around at their homes. Well, actually, a lot of companies, USAA is actually one of them, they actually had higher productivity, better customer service scores, and were able to actually help more people by having their employees work from home. So again, just giving them that small little thing that helped kind of create that engagement, and they had to change their company culture around some of the changes that have been kind of happening. With the heartbeat jobs, I had a company that it was looking for facilities, and they're like, oh, they're going to clean bathrooms, so I just need somebody, it doesn't matter who. And I was like, actually, it does matter who you're going to bring into that company, because you have to think about how that impacts your total guest experience. How many people have gone into a bathroom and it's disgusting, and you're like, do I really want to eat there? Do I really want to shop there? And so every job has value, people have value, and even the smallest position to the biggest position, linking it back to your mission, even if it's creating a great customer experience, whether it's, increasing sales by 10%, it's really explaining the why, and how you can actually increase that is just connecting with your employees. We actually are at a really interesting time. We actually have the most generations all in one workforce, so we can't expect what motivates one person is going to motivate another person. I'm a hated millennial, and I'm very aware of that, but I feel like I bring a different perspective, and it's really important that my leadership and I know what motivates me versus what motivates somebody else from a different generation. And what happens when you're able to collaborate and you're able to work together, everybody rises together. And that's one of the great things about having a company culture, is making sure that everybody has a seat at the table, and not just assuming what the table is. And you can do that with a lot of communication, employee surveys, or just even informal conversations. And it really helps drive people in. For a lot of employers that say that they're struggling keeping staff, I've always asked them, talk to the staff that's staying. What's the why of why they're staying? Because that can really help define your company culture and help you make those positive changes.
Thank you. Great words from
Not bad for a last minute fill-in, huh?
Thank you for those great words from the hated millennial. So I want to go back to another group question. And again, I'll let you guys decide the order. And you can decide if it's easy or hard. Okay. What are the new stressors on leaders?
I think for me is after going through the pandemic, and you had to turn that ship, the big ship of DHS, around really quickly. And so I think before we could take a little time and luxury in making decisions. Today you can't really. You have to move on things and get moving. There's a higher demand for honesty and concise communication for employees. Being upfront and transparent is very important. And I think another thing is the burden of the work ahead. After, at least in my agency, like I said, there's a lot of federal and state regulations, and there's a lot of waivers in place related to the pandemic. And when those go away, our workload is going to go exponentially into the skies, into the moon or further. So preparing staff for that and giving them as much communication about it and strategy is very, very important. I think also recalibrating the teams. We don't work the same as we did before the pandemic. There's all different technologies. We have to be aware of, it's okay to work from home, and you have productivity at home. So be aware of that and also be flexible.
I think some of the stressors that we've seen is just really kind of a reshaped workforce, a huge increase in technology that we kind of slowly talked about, maybe looking at, you just had to move for it, like Chris said, and just kind of move fast. So I feel like everything is really focused on change management. Sometimes change is really hard, and there was not a lot of time for people to catch their breath. And I think you've seen that through a lot of burnout through leadership, burnout through your employees. We've seen a lot of people taking early retirements, shifting complete career fields as well. So I think one of the stressors is looking at how you can promote change management and then providing resources and support mechanisms to catch burnout before it happens, and then to support your staff with that.
Go ahead.
Oh, Erica, I'll kind of tag on to that. I thought that was interesting. I think all of us in this room have encountered more change probably than we've ever had in the last couple of years. And so one of the approaches we've taken is people need to understand what that change means very specifically. So we use an approach called what are you going to start, what are you going to stop, and what are you going to continue. But the most important thing is what's in it for them. What's in it for them and what's in it for their clients. And if they can't verbalize that as leaders and as a team of leaders, we need to help them to be able to understand that. And sometimes you have to have patience with people, because people come to change quicker than others, but we're all kind of going to the same place. So stop, start, continue, and what's in it for me and my clients.
Susan, do you want to go, or you want to?
I don't have much to add, because I think everyone, it's kind of on the same thing of the pace of change, right? I think in COVID, it both revealed inequities that have always been in society, but now thankfully we're more aware of them and are working to address them, but that does require a more deliberative approach to things. But yeah, it just accelerated what was already happening kind of in society. And I think whether you're in the leadership management role or at any level in an organization, that's put pressure really on everybody. But again, particularly if you're in those leading and coaching roles, increased concern, right, about the mental and emotional health of everybody, right? And that then puts pressure on the leader who's watching out for their mental and emotional health while they're concerned about their teammates, right? And I think that's something we're going to continue to see play out. Just as we're seeing more early retirements and resignations and things, the effects of this, I think, are only just beginning, and we're going to have to figure out how we adjust to this long term.
So you guys have all made some excellent points, and I don't have much to add as far as that goes. What I will sort of say to summarize is, as a leader, one of the things, actually two things, that I really try to focus on in this very chaotic and unpredictable environment is the vision. Where are we going? How are we going to get there? What are we trying to achieve? What do we want to accomplish? And how do we maintain a culture in order to drive that? You all have talked about both of those in different ways. But if you can't maintain a culture of driven folks that understand that vision and understand how we are going to get from point A to point B in a very chaotic environment, you're really never going to succeed. And so one of the things that I've really focused on as a leader is trying to maintain that vision and the goals and the milestones, and then really build a culture that allows us to achieve what we're aiming for.
Perfect. Thank you all. Susan, please share how your team celebrates accomplishments.
The easy answer is food and drink is always good, right? But I think the main thing is that almost really should start with the team, and you need a culture where people come to you with the suggestions of how they want to celebrate. If it's you saying we're going to do A, B, and C versus someone coming and saying, how about if we have an outing where we go ice skating? How about we all ride bikes on the Legacy Loop? And for us downtown, a lot of our celebrations, we literally tie to our environment that we are looking to create downtown. But to me, that's another one of those. It's not me dictating, but you run the risk of that forced office fun feeling, which is the worst. The boss has said we're going to go on this outing, and now we're going to go sit at the ball game, or we're going to do whatever, and you got to be really kind of sensitive to creating those things. I will say a very small way that we celebrate, and it's also just sort of a morale builder. We had a Slack channel before COVID, but as we were working remotely in the early months of the pandemic, obviously the Slack channel started getting used much more. And since that time, even though we are all, if you will, returned to the office, we're not around each other, all of us as a team, every single day. And that Slack channel has become a great way for folks to share news, tidbits, information, little things, right? Someone is out and they've accomplished a little task, and they'll post a photo, and people will cheer them on. And so in our Slack channel, like the main channel is just sort of hashtag team, and people will share information. Hashtag news, when maybe they found something on in the paper or a news story that may be something that one of our own teammates was the interviewee or featured on camera. But again, not a big celebration, but we also have a hashtag pet pics, and people just share pictures of their pets. So even if you're working from home for the day or something, people will share a picture of their dog or cat or whatever. So less about a celebration there, but much more about like a morale builder. And that Slack channel has really, I think, done a lot for us, and just the little things each day, not just always the big, pizza party or whatever.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's great. Jim, the next question is for you. So as a servant leader, it is so important to humanize your actions and to let your staff know how much you care. How do you do this, and why do you feel it's so important?
Well, I think everyone may have heard this Teddy Roosevelt quote, but no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. Have people heard that? I think that is so true. And early in my career, I worked for a woman named Barbara, who during a very difficult time for me and my family, kind of stopped everything, stopped the business, contacted people in the community that could help me and my family, and also arranged for me to work a modified work schedule, which, 30 years ago was not really what you did. You came in at the time and you left at the time. And so I was more than happy to come in at 6 a.m. in the morning, and so I could get off early. And I had a tremendous amount of loyalty to that particular manager, because I knew how much she cared first, and the business kind of came second. But what did she do? She gained tremendous loyalty from me and our staff. So I'll just share a couple quick tips that I've kind of learned over the years from various leaders that I've worked with. But first of all, listen and learn. It is not your job to necessarily tell people what to do. Sometimes you do. But realize that you don't always have all the answers. I try to treat all of our employees as though I might someday work for them. So I ask their advice. Hey, how could we be doing a better job? How could I be doing a better job? Share your network. You've all heard, I think, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And so as leaders, we need to be sharing our knowledge with our employees, but how often do you share your network with the employees, right? That's really important too. And if you're not, please do. Also, you need to be providing others on your team an opportunity to lead. One of the things that I think is great about our bank is we encourage people to serve on boards, volunteer in the community. That not only improves their leadership skills, but it also helps our community. So we're kind of getting a twofer for that. You want to make sure that you're recognizing their efforts, not just internally, but externally. So, nominate people for Rising Stars, nominate people for Women of Influence. I think that's important too, that they know you value their contributions, not just for what it can do for your organization, but what they're doing for the community. Create moments that matter. That's what we call it. That's that in-person time. And if you think about those important events in your career where you've interacted with a leader or somebody supported you, they've typically done that in person. So while we sometimes need to do it by phone and by video, really it's those moments that matter the most. We're in person. And then I would leave you with this, and I learned this from a manager I work for right now. He never ever leaves the conversation without asking, how can I help? And I was his employee, right? And now I'm his peer. And as his peer, whenever we interact, he still says, how can I help you, Jim? So, a couple pointers.
Thank you. Chris, what is the power that has given, what is the power that giving the bigger picture and the vision has on your employees?
Understanding the bigger picture, I think, is a huge strategy towards employee retention. They feel empowered to engage and have productivity, and also encourages their innovation and ambition. Also reinforces the daily activities they do. Why are they doing what they do, and how it impacts the bigger picture, the people they serve, the families they're helping, those kind of things. It's also a big thing of feeling a part of belonging of the agency.
Brian, next question is for you. So your office has democratized leadership by flattening the hierarchy. Why did you do this, and what impact did it have?
Thanks, Dr. Lee. Yeah, I alluded to this earlier, that we intentionally, about 10 years ago, flattened the hierarchical structure in our firm. And of course, being a small firm, that didn't take a lot. But it was important because what I recognized was if you remove titles, you allow people to focus on things that they're most passionate about and most interested in. And as a result, maybe going to work doesn't feel like going to work every day. And so it's really been quite liberating, I think, for everyone in our office to not feel like they are always reporting to someone with more seniority, or can't share ideas, or can't bring ideas forward because somebody will say, I'm in charge, and what you have to say doesn't really matter. It's allowed us to be incredibly agile. It's really helped tremendously with collaboration. It's allowed us to respond and pivot very rapidly to any situation that we face. It really encourages people to try a lot of different things. Again, as a small firm, everybody gets to wear a lot of different hats. One of the sort of unintended consequences, I think, is what Erica was talking about, that today people aren't even really focused so much on what is my title. They're more interested on maybe what is my why, how can I have impact, what am I doing for the greater good. And so it's been interesting to see how a decision we made a number of years ago has really played out quite elegantly in the situation that we're facing today. You know, over time, it's allowed us, as I said, to be very agile. When the Great Recession hit, we really didn't have to make any staffing adjustments because everyone just kind of repositioned themselves to do things that needed to be done within the firm. So you weren't pigeonholed or siloed into, I only do X, Y, and Z, and now that isn't a need, so now I get laid off or whatever. It's really allowed us to adjust to the environment at the time. As things ramped back up after the Great Recession, again, it allowed us to very quickly and fluidly shift people around to do different things, and somebody that might have been in more of a support role on one project could take more of a lead role on another project because they had the expertise or the background to do that, and we weren't locked into any one way of thinking or any one mode of being organized. And from my perspective, it makes my job easier to manage our folks because I don't have 3 or 4 other people that where it rolls down through a pyramid. My door is always open to everyone on our team, and it's this direct line of communication that again breaks down those barriers of roles and breaks down those silos and allows just a much more efficient and collaborative mode of communication.
Thank you. Erica, many people assume that a leader needs to know everything. Admitting I don't know as a leader can be a very powerful tool. Can you give us an example of when you've used this or seen this recently?
So when I first started out, I had that same mindset as I need to say yes to every opportunity. I need to know every single thing that I can. And then what happens is you end up kind of not giving that trust in your team. And what happens is that you're doing all the work and you're basically siloing yourself as a leader and not allowing the people that you have built around you to do the work that they need to do. So what I kind of learned through, experiences, especially when I was in retail management, was a good leader knows what the job is, but a good leader really helps support and promote the individuals around them to do their best and to do their job well. And so something that actually just happened the other day, I got invited to a security clearance meeting. And I know what a security clearance is. I know what people need about it. But they really wanted to talk about how they can increase young professionals. And I just don't know that much about that process. So I actually asked Robin Lovewell, who is our DoD business specialist, and she actually has, I found out through my conversation, she actually has a top secret security clearance, an active one. And so her and I sat down and I kind of like, can you explain this to me? Can you tell me? So that way I'm better prepared for the meeting. And so she wasn't able to attend the meeting, but I had those questions and that knowledge. And then I was able to pass that back on over to her. Because we can't expect to know everything, but there's people that do have those skills, ability, and knowledge that can really help with that. And she had just such a great perspective of, what it looks like. I found out how expensive it is, $110,000, and it takes 18 to 24 months. So again, really eye-opening information, but it's sometimes connecting your team and letting them shine on what they're really good at. I always encourage everybody to do some different personality tests, do some different leadership tests. For me, I'm really good at like the big ideas. I'm good at talking. I'm sometimes too loud, some of them will tell me, but I sometimes miss out on the little details, and I make sure I build the people around me to make sure that they're successful, because that increases my success and the team's success and the organization's success. And I feel like as a leader, you can't just look at how you look, you have to look at the whole organization as a whole and how successful it is.
Thank you for those great comments. I want to go to another group question. And so how are each of you making sure that you're taking care of yourselves and staying healthy? And you can ignore the fact that it's a primary care doc asking you this question as freely as you want. So don't feel like you have to say the right things. Just, there's power in everything. So how do you guys do that?
So I've started using my Outlook calendars, schedule walks during the day, because I found myself so focused on work that I didn't get out of my office or move around. But that idea actually came from an employee who came to one of my open office hours, and they asked me to take a walk with them around the building to check something out, and we ended up talking for an hour. It was a really great kind of thing, and I kind of like to say that engagement is like herd immunity. Once the word gets out, they all want to come and engage with Chris and the leadership team, so that's kind of a healthy thing you can do at work. Also, I meditate and I do workouts every evening. I try to go burn some energy. Some days I need like 4 hours to do that, but anyway, and also allowing myself to take more vacation time. I'm a long-term employee of the county. I have lots of time, and I was of the mindset, because I'm of that end of the baby boomer generation, that you work, and you work some more, and I have all this vacation on the books. Why am I not taking it? It's okay to do it. Giving myself permission. So that's some of the things I've done.
Something that was really important for me since we've been doing hybrid work was to maintain connectivity with my team. So something that we actually made a calendar invite to was an end of the month business relations group meeting. And I assigned every single person on the team a month, and that was their opportunity to take us someplace completely non-work related. So last week we went mini golfing as a team, and it was just fun because it's like you're able to be with people that you work with, but it's no pressure. I got 3 holes in one, and it's been really fun. Joking with who was on the golf team too, so it made me feel really good. But again, it just creates that camaraderie. And I just loved having everybody, and it's optional, it's not mandatory, again, mandatory fun, but the people that actually weren't really great in engaging when they first got brought on have actually gotten engaged, and then it's been a great opportunity for people to connect with the city too, because it's that kind of cool, like I have something I want to show you and experience with you, and so it's just a small thing. It's only an hour, sometimes people will stay later, but it's just a really nice way to connect and do something to experience as a team.
So anyone that's a small business owner understands that it's really easy to be on call 24/7. It's really easy to go on vacation and get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and work for 4 hours before the rest of the family gets up, and Christmas Eve you're working because you know that you've got a deadline coming up at the end of the year and you don't want to work on Christmas Day. And so for me, I've just taken the position, probably in the last few years, that that email is going to be there tomorrow. That spreadsheet can wait to be completed. It's important, of course, to be responsive to clients and to the needs and to be accountable for what we're doing, but taking a breather every once in a while is not going to be the end of the world. It will be there tomorrow. And so kind of like Chris, I intentionally try to carve out time just for myself to go get in a bike ride or go for a jog, or I've got a 12-year-old daughter, and recognizing that in just a few short years she's going to be out of the house, this is very important time to drive her to school. And if I have to make up some extra time someplace else to be able to enjoy fleeting moments with her or with other family members, it's well worth it. And that's really important to understand, that you can't let yourself be a slave to what you do. You've got to create that time and space to take care of yourself and maintain that balance.
Well, you might have heard this, but during the pandemic, you either became a hunk, a chunk, or a drunk. and maybe all three, maybe, or 2 out of 3, right? So I definitely put on some pounds during the pandemic. So one of the things that I've started doing is going to a 5 a.m. spin class. So about 4 o'clock today, forget it, I'm dead by the end of the day. But that's been important. But the other thing that's been important for me is, as you rise up in leadership within your organizations, sometimes leadership can be a little isolating, and so you don't necessarily want to share your insecurities about leadership or the company with people that report to you, because you want to instill that sense of confidence in you. So it's important that you have a confidant, someone else within the organization, maybe somebody you don't necessarily directly work with, that you can share that with, and that relieves a lot of the burden that you might be carrying as leaders. So I would encourage, if you're not doing that, to reach out to somebody that you trust and be confidants to each other.
That's a nice one. I would say for me, I had reinforced during these past few years my introvert tendency. I score a low I introvert, which sometimes surprises people because they see me out in the community, and my job is very much relational, so it absolutely involves lots of after-work activities and networking and connecting, much of which I do enjoy. So I'm not anti that, but I found sort of emerging from work from home, you know how during work from home, some people, like the extroverts, were going nuts, and I was just loving it. And so it has been hard, the sort of re-entry, and so I have found more than ever, weekends matter more than ever. I'm more protective of them. I know among many of my sort of circles of other sort of community networked folks, we all said, we're not going back to the old way of all of these things. And yet I think all of these things and more have come back. And I have learned to say no, and also say, I really love what you and your organization does, and I'm not going to be there, and don't feel like I have to give a reason why, and some long explanation of all the hours I already worked and how tired I am or whatever. And I would say a tip for anybody that frankly helps the rest of us eyes out there is don't say things to people like, oh, we really missed you at such and such last night, or where were you, because I've just realized my bandwidth can only go so far. And it's less about the hours. I struggle with being in large crowds of people, right? I can absolutely have long days of small groups of people or whatever, but I shy away from larger groups because I just realize when my energy bank has been drained, if you will. So to me, it's just more awareness that that's how I function, and that's okay. And when I'm ready to just say enough, that I can accept that and let my energy bank kind of refill through a quiet day or something.
That's excellent. We have 2 more questions, and then we're opening it up for audience questions. So get yours ready while we ask these following 2 questions. Susan, how can leaders be more honest and check in with their teams?
I'll say 2 quick things on that. One, on the honest side, is also giving up the spotlight. I absolutely am not the only person who speaks for our organization, so whether that's other team members who are doing the media interviews, giving presentations to civic organizations, speaking to the board, that kind of letting go and having that sort of shared opportunity. But what I will say also with the work that we do at Downtown Partnership, I do a lot of work that is highly confidential, right? I am working with business prospects months before that is known, so not everybody on the team knows we're working on something. I also deal, frankly, with really highly sensitive political situations sometimes. So there can be this sort of stressor that once the news is revealed and people are like, well, Susan knows something, she's not telling us. And I have to do that for a reason. But what I have tried to do is at times, once an initiative or a situation has, resolved or become public or whatever the situation may be, I may not sit down with the whole team, but I might sit down with a couple folks and say, I want to explain to you what I went through these past few months that ended up with this situation. And I do that for a few reasons. One, because one day I want them to be the leader manager, and they need to know that that's sometimes what leaders are dealing with. I'm not talking HR issues or things that always need to be confidential, but when I explain like, oh, well, I got the late night call from this elected leader and they were texting when we were working through this issue, then they're like, oh, that's what it means if I want to be a CEO too. It's these things. And so one, I hope that kind of helps them kind of grow and realize that if that's the path they're on, that's something they're going to be aware of, and that what they see me do each day is part of it, but it also is these other pieces. So as much as I can, once something is no longer confidential, I try to share how the sausage was made so that they learn, and they also then can see like, oh, well, one day I might be doing that too. So.
Thank you. I love the Hamilton reference, I just got to say. So last question before we move on to you guys, and this is again a group question. What are some of the positive changes that have come from all the pivoting that you had to do due to the pandemic?
I would say better efficiencies through the use of technology and the ability to work at home. And also I think we shifted our culture at the agency to one of support and wellness. We actually started Wellness Week at DHS. We had food trucks come in. We had open office hours with all the directors. We had therapy dogs come in. We had all kinds of fun things, and people really responded to that and said, "Gee, can we do that again?" And so, we're starting. We've started a wellness committee who's planning and strategizing about how to continue that at the agency. So it's been great. Yeah, that's a good shift.
I would say the same thing with technology. We've expanded who our team is. It used to be the team was the people you officed with, right? Now our team can be people, subject matter experts from all over the country. And where we used to have to coordinate travel schedules and airline flights and hotels to get everyone together to meet with a client about a certain need, now we can say, well, we can be out there tomorrow and I'll bring my laptop and we'll patch them in through my MiFi, and we'll introduce them to a subject matter expert that can take care of their needs. So while it's always important that somebody kind of be there in person with the client, you can patch in subject matter experts to assist, and so we've certainly leveraged that.
Something that I've seen is people really asking the why have we always done this? So the status quo has definitely changed since the pandemic. It's not just like, oh, let's just keep doing this because this is how it's always worked. It's given a lot of great new energy and I think revitalization for a lot of businesses to kind of do some of the things they kept thinking about, and instead of thinking about it, just actually taking the action, taking the plunge. One of the things I always want to make sure, it's like, let's try it, and if it fails, at least we know it failed, and then we could try something different. And I think the pandemic has given a lot of businesses and individuals that permission to start a new business, go for a promotion, start a new process with everything. I think of Game of Thrones when they said chaos is a ladder, and I think it kind of did give a lot of opportunities that a lot of people weren't aware of, and some different ideas that people were able to do because of that chaos kind of helped push everything along and a lot faster. Because I think we always are like, oh, maybe tomorrow I'll do that. Well, there was no guarantee of tomorrow or what it was going to look like tomorrow. So I needed to do it now. So I've just seen that with businesses and individuals.
Because of the way our team is structured, there really weren't too many major shifts as part of the pandemic pivot. But it really reinforced for us the importance of doing things the way that we had been doing them and kind of the beauty of why that was working. It's given us the ability to refocus in some ways. It's given us the opportunity to be more mindful about how we innovate and why we innovate. I would agree with Chris and Jim that obviously the efficiencies of travel and being present virtually as opposed to in person has helped in some regards. However, we can't visually inspect a building under construction through a Zoom call. So there has always been, throughout the pandemic, a tremendous amount of on-site and personal interaction with the projects and the clients that we work with. So that for us really hasn't changed. But to Jim's point, rather than having to have a consultant fly in from California for a particular meeting, the efficiency of being able to get that person on virtually has certainly allowed us to be more efficient in that regard.
I'd certainly echo a lot of the wellness emphasis and the efficiencies, and I guess the only thing I would add is I think it's created more of a culture of people, if you will, sort of asking for what they want. And by that, I don't mean asking for a raise. I mean, if someone says, it's really important to me that every Tuesday I'm able to do blah, blah, blah with my kid after school, or whatever the thing is, that people feel a little more freedom and empowered, and certainly as managers, saying, of course, we can find a way to make that happen, because there are new tools and new ways and more flexibilities that in the past people may have been even afraid to ask for something like that, and now we say, oh yeah, because that matters to you, we're going to find a way to make that work, and people aren't shy about saying that anymore, nor should they be. So,
thank you. First question from the audience. Tori has given us one that is, there's quite a few questions in this. So we're going to make it a two-parter, but part one, it's a resource question. Who are good companies offering team building services? Have you brought any into your business? If so, to do what? And how effective have they been? That's part one. Panel.
So something that we actually just started, we did it with our team and then we're gonna roll it out, and we've actually been working with a couple different businesses, is using predictive index. So not looking at it for your team and kind of identifying what are like the strengths of your team, kind of what are their different styles, but then really kind of even elevating that more of looking at it for role specific and using it as a hiring tool as well. I mean, how many times do people say, I'm looking for the right fit? And sometimes it's not about the right fit, it's making sure that person has the right skill sets. And we're also leveraging Skillful, and that really focuses on reducing biases in just language usage during the hiring process. But those are just kind of two tools that we're using kind of hand in hand right now to either help your existing staff and to make sure that you retain them, or to attract new staff, especially if you have somebody that's leaving. We have our information data analyst who's going to retire at the end of this year. So we've been actually kind of comparing everybody that has applied with it to make sure it's like, do they still have that similar skill set? And same thing with that personality. He's a harmonizer, which you don't necessarily think for a data guy, but his main strength is harmony, of really making sure all of these different teams and information gets allocated well. And I know we actually did it with DHS as well.
I'll just add, as a big fan of the arts, that I think involving artists in work like this, I've seen a lot of effectiveness, and particularly around the art of improv. So working with actors and folks skilled in improv, there are amazing sort of team building exercises around improv. You know, the main rule of improv is the idea of yes and, you know, so you don't shut down an idea, you build off of it. Or also, you know, often in improv, right? In improv, you're given a scene or a condition, and you might say, you're on an airplane and blah, 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 go. Well, if somebody suddenly says, no, we're not on an airplane, we're in a circus, like that, just, you've gotta be flexible and go with it, right? So really skilled actors and improv folks are great at building teams and helping to sort of create possibilities. And other artistic activities as well, I think are really a great method.
I'll give a plug to my friend, Dr. Regina Lewis. We've engaged with her at the bank, I don't know, several times, especially during the pandemic. And she, in general, is speaking about leadership and team building, but also diversity, equity, and inclusion. And she does it in such a way that is very non-threatening to people. And she has this very powerful story, and I won't give it away, but she has this very powerful story. Once she tells it, people kind of get on the end of their seat, and then you get just this tingle down your spine. And so she's incredibly powerful and was very helpful to us, so I'll give her that plug.
In our equity, diversity, and inclusion work, we contracted with the University of Colorado School of Public Health and did many sessions with, like I said, different layers of our department. And what I really was pleased about is they made it very engaging. It's a very serious topic, but they made it very engaging, thoughtful, and it was just a good strategy on how to engage people in the conversation and feel comfortable about talking that through at all levels and bringing forth ideas about how to make our agency more equitable, more diverse, and more inclusive. So I was really pleased with that contract with them.
So we haven't brought in any outside agency or consultant, but this is all good information for me to learn from and to take back. But what we have done is focused a lot internally on, as I said before, that culture. We've done it through looking at ways to further build camaraderie, to empower people to rally around a particular issue or a particular challenge, and to tackle it collaboratively and tackle it together. And I think just, again, being intentional and being mindful about that process has really been helpful in maintaining the team and kind of building that camaraderie around the office.
Thank you. Part two of this question is, what programs in the community are being offered to develop leadership? And I'm going to start by saying I'm filling in for Mina Liebert today, and a part of her title was being part of the Colorado Springs Leadership Institute, CSLI. So that's a good one to start with. Hand it over.
I would say Leadership Pikes Peak. I actually just finished their signature program. It was a 9-month program, but they have some other programs as well. They have Leadership Now, women's leadership, and it's just a really great program. It teaches you so much about your community, but it also teaches a lot about yourself and how you can utilize yourself. So actually applications are open right now for Leadership Pikes Peak, and they have scholarship options as well, so I would highly encourage anybody to take that because it was a great learning experience.
I think maybe almost everyone up here may be graduates of CSLI, not the best class ever 2013, but Jen, raise your hand. Anybody needs information, she can certainly help. She's our executive director. So.
Yes, also proud CSLI alum and LPP alum, and just also had a colleague go through LPP, and we'll probably have another relatively new employee who's also new to the community go through LPP this year. And another program I'm hearing great things about, and I know nothing about it, I'm hoping someone in the room might. United Way has a newish program. It's an acronym with an E in it. Does anyone know that? I've heard great things about that. But yeah, what's that?
Leading Edge? Lead? Oh.
Yeah, I think it's LEAD or something. Yeah, so I've been hearing really good things about that as well.
Thank you.
Next question. First of all, I'll just start with from the audience. Kudos. Thank you for this great panel. So here's a question. Have you actually changed benefits or stipends to address being a coach, diversity, equity, inclusion, and the whole employer?
Can you say that again? I'm sorry.
Have you actually changed benefits or stipends to address doing all of these extra things and doing all the amazing work that you do?
And I'll start a little bit in terms of, I mean, one plus I think in the past couple of years is professional development opportunities. They're both more of them online, so that in one sense that can be affordable because you don't have to fly someone out and put them up in a hotel and all of that. But we also have looked at some of our benefits, especially, you know, again, that more like vacation time accrual and those kinds of things, as well as access to more mental wellness services. I think, hopefully, I think a lot of companies and organizations have put more effort in those areas.
Okay, I may have misunderstood the question. So I'll do like they say, answer the question you wish you would have been asked. Right? CSLI, they teach you that, right? But one of the things that I think U.S. Bank has done that's incredibly unique is we have created what's called business access advisors. We've created these positions 8 across the country, and Colorado Springs is very lucky to have Natasha Hudson. And if you came to the business bash that they had on Saturday, she was speaking on behalf of the bank. But her 100% goal is to help small businesses be successful, specifically black-owned businesses, and we're going to be expanding those to other disadvantaged groups in the city. But that's 100% her job. So we're putting 100% of her salary into that, and that woman is everywhere all at once. I'm surprised she's not here today, but anyway, probably because I'm here and she's doing something
She's
else.
on my board, so she was at a board meeting this morning.
There we go. Okay.
For our firm, we didn't really add any additional benefits, but we definitely took a close look at how to realign the benefits that we offer so that it really matches up more with what our employees are looking for. So again, it's about flexibility with vacation and sick time. It's about having flexible work hours. It's about being very fluid in where, when, and how people get their jobs done. And again, with the understanding that we're all adults, we all are accountable, we all understand what it is that we're supposed to be doing, and as a small firm, we all know that if we're not pulling our weight, it'll become very obvious. But trying to understand how to realign what we do and what we offer has been a pretty important part of maintaining our staff and making them understand that as a company we're 100% behind them, and I think the loyalty that builds is pretty powerful.
At the Department of Human Services, we do have 2 units of casework coaches, and those are not supervisors, but they're available to staff if there's a difficult case or a difficult situation. They want to just get some quick information or pick someone's brain about how to deal with the situation. We've also, I guess as far as stipends, a lot of our caseworkers have advanced degrees and want to get their LCSW, which is a licensed clinical social work license. And now we're going to pay our staff that can supervise to that stipend to, otherwise you have to pay for it yourself. The individual would have to pay an hourly fee to their supervisor person for their LCSW. Now our department's offering that, so any employee who wants to go for their LCSW doesn't have to pay that cost. We're already paying the instructor.
So my organization is a little bit different because we are federally funded, and so we actually have to follow a lot of federal regulations. So with that, all of us, the whole entire staff, have to go through ADA training, disability etiquette. We go through, we've done with Regina, DEI training. We actually have on staff an ADA coordinator and a language accessibility, because all of our services have to make sure accessibility is a huge thing. So we actually have all of our essential documents translated into the 5 top languages in our local area. We can do any interpreters, sign language interpreters. We actually participate in like the disability forum with some of our other community partners. On my staff, I actually have a resource coordinator so that can assist businesses, so they can actually help with JAN accommodations. She can actually look at Social Security benefits and what are the implications if you have Social Security and you want to work. So she's been just a tremendous resource. We give everybody on our staff $500 for personal development. A lot of people have taken that opportunity to do different strategies and different things. I took my EDI workforce certification, so I did a 5-week course and ended up getting a workforce certification in that, just to make sure that, because I'm working with businesses, that I can help lead that conversation. We have job coaches that work individually with businesses and job seekers, and that actually is through paid work experiences, and they can actually help with the accommodation pieces as well. So we've gotten people earpieces, so if they're doing a job that they're on the phone and they have hearing loss, we can actually pay for that. But the great thing is we want to give people the option of what's most meaningful for them and for their role. So that $500, we can kind of go up and down too. So if there's something that's a little bit more, we'll kind of figure that out. And then we make sure we have the organizational chart so people know like where their next step can be too. So that's really helpful.
Perfect. We've got about 4 minutes left. We've got one question, so we're going to speed through that and wrap things up. What role does emotional intelligence serve in the workplace?
Everything?
Yeah, I mean, that's hugely important. I think from a leadership standpoint, one of the things that I certainly try to do is embed that understanding in our staff. And I talked a little bit about it before, that being sensitive to how your words and actions impact others, and how your opinion, although you're entitled to it, may adversely affect the people that you're with. That, in essence, to me, is emotional intelligence, being sensitive to how other people are feeling and what they're sensing and what they're thinking. And so I think it's critical. It really is a major driver in how you communicate, what you do, how you interact, and is central to success in all those, in really everything you do. People that don't have a very high sensitivity to that, I think, tend to really struggle when they interact with people. And so anything that you can do to hone your emotional intelligence and hone your ability to sense how people are perceiving you and modify the way you interact with people, acknowledging that everybody is different, everybody receives your communication in a different way. I've really focused on modifying my delivery and the way that I communicate with people depending on the situation, and if I know what they're looking for, what they're expecting, what they're needing, so that it hopefully resonates.
It's really that difference between leadership and management, right? You know, you're not just managing people or managing tasks with the emotional intelligence, and that takes everything to another level.
And I would just probably add to that is, are you the type of leader that you would want to work for? Are you the type of manager that you would want to work for? And so doing a lot of self-reflection, asking for feedback, asking for peer feedback, looking for other people to give you feedback as well, because it's only going to strengthen you. And sometimes having some of the harder feedback actually helps you grow better and helps you kind of develop long term.
I would say ditto to that. The only thing I might add is that every time you interact with someone, whether it be a peer or your supervisor or somebody that reports to you, have you built them up or have you torn them down? So while you may need to deliver some constructive feedback, you want to make sure you're building that person up. If they leave discouraged or they feel like my opinion didn't count, you're not using your emotional intelligence. So.
Thank you. Dr. Lee, would you like to add some closing comments?
Yeah, no, thank you. I just wanted to give a huge thanks to all the panel. I loved hearing what all you had to say. I wish I could have closed my clinics today, brought all my docs down and heard you guys speak. Because even though we're in healthcare, it's like so many of these leadership principles and it just apply to whatever industry that you're in. I'll just, a few quick comments. I'm big on bullet points and take-home messages, and there are a few things that I just heard that resounded. So what I heard early on and all through is just coaching and culture, and just I love the idea of just building people up, uplifting people, empowering people, and just making that your culture. That's your everyday thing. It's not an anomaly thing. You know, Jim, in response to you said it. You know, I've heard anywhere from it takes 5 to 7 positive comments to 1 constructive comment to create a neutral environment. So you've got to give a ton of positive feedback. So listening, empowering people, uplifting them up. And then just the idea of just everyone is a leader. So it doesn't matter if you have a role, it doesn't mean if you're the owner or a manager, you're not the chief. That's the title we use in our job. I don't like it, but that's what we use, and it's the chief. But even if you don't have that role, you are still a leader. Manage your team, treat them. And I loved your comment, or someone's comment about treat every employee as if they might be your boss one day, because it can come back to you. And the last thing I just want to close it is just give yourself some grace, because they all sound like they're perfect, and I bet if you sat down with them and had a glass of wine, they would probably tell you how they become to sound so perfect, because we make mistakes. And one thing I've learned as a leader is failure is a gift. Failure is an opportunity to learn something that you can be better at. But you got to give yourself that grace, and you got to keep striving to be better and better. So thank you to this amazing panel, and thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. So I'm going to wrap it up on behalf of the Better Business Bureau and the SBDC, and just say, again, my takeaways were from this great group of panelists and community leaders is be flexible, listen, be transparent, have celebrate humanity and people's unique skill sets, be inclusive. If you want to watch this again and write down some more notes, all of the week's workshops are going to be available at pikespeaksbdc.org/Small Business Week. And yeah, please, if you can make it, join us for State of Small Business. You do need to register because lunch is being served next door in the big auditorium, but that's tomorrow, and that will wrap up the week. So thank you all for being here. There's still just a few. I think there's about 12 left.
Oh, really?
So
okay.
Grab them quick. And thank you all. Have a great day.
Thank you guys. You guys are amazing. Thank you.